Okay. Hi, everyone. We're now live with the webinar. So welcome to another ISE webinar. I'm Claire Tyler, the Head of Insights at ISE. Today, we're going to be talking about what early career professionals need most, but are rarely taught. We're joined by the wonderful Raul Aparici, and he's Head of Faculty at the School of Life. In fact, he's joining us from Mexico City today, I believe. So we're very lucky to have him. Raul's going to use his expertise from psychotherapy and coaching to explore why self-awareness should be the foundation of early career development. He'll also share with us how to teach it in a way that's practical, psychologically rich, and emotionally intelligent. So it sounds like a great session. At the end of Raul's presentation, we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. Can I please ask you to share your questions during the webinar using the Q&A function below? The chat box is also open for any comments or thoughts that you have during the session. So please interact there if you'd like to. But please, if you can, remember to put your questions in the Q&A box rather than in the chat. Just makes it easier for us to monitor them at this end. Okay, so without further ado, we'll get started. So over to you, Raul.
Thank you so much, Claire. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to spend some time with me, but also with each one of us, thinking about how we can use self-awareness as a way to engage and to maybe preempt some of the issues that the world of work has, not just for early career talent, but from all of us as we work with other people. And this is what we do at the School of Life. We think about how we can learn at work, how we can change, and how we can work. We have a bunch of people that we work with, that we have worked with over the years. And I think all of our clients, what they have in common is this idea that actually we are all human, and we are human in the workplace, and that will at times require us to maybe draw on aspects of our personality that we may feel maybe this is not professional, or maybe this is not for work, and so on. So with that, I would like you to arrive to this session and to think about yourselves, and to think about how often do you think about yourselves? How are you in the world? How do you show up in the world for yourself and for the people around you? And what I'd like you to, if you haven't heard about the School of Life, by the way, we have a bunch of resources as well that we share with through our YouTube channel and through our other channels, through our publishing arm, with everyone out there, both in terms of their personal and the work life. And with that in mind, this session is quite interactive. All right, so hopefully we will all know ourselves a little bit better, to quote Socrates, know ourselves a little bit better by the end of our session. So I'm going to be using Mentimeter as well, and I'm going to pop a little link in the chat just now for you to click on the Mentimeter as we go through the session too, if you want to share some of your own experiences and ideas on this. Very helpful, because we believe that actually so the trainings that we do are usually experiential. We believe that's how one holds on to learning a lot better. And with that, I would like to start by asking you how you are. And before you answer in the chat with just 2 or 3 words as to how you are, I'd like you to also consider, how do you know how you are? So when someone says, how are you? Do you just automatically say, I'm fine, how are you? Or do you actually take a second and to really use that as an opportunity to think, yeah, how am I? Where do I go for that information? Do I go to my body? I am tired, I'm sleepy, or I'm hungry. Do you go to your relationships? I'm maybe angry with someone else, or I am sad. Or do you go to something deeper inside of you, right? Like, how are you feeling? So right now in the chat, I would like you, not in the Mentimeter, right in the chat first, I would just like you to write 1 or 2 words that express how you are right now. And remember, how do you know how you are, right? So that's the first task. So just in the chat, Stephen, a quickly question whether someone actually wants to know how I'm actually feeling. Yes, and you know, a lot of the time, if we're honest, we don't. And I think the tragedy really is that we don't really want to know how we are feeling. Self-awareness becomes something that we all desperately need, and at the same time, we're quite reluctant to engage with, because for some reason we might feel that it's too difficult to really know oneself. What if I find things that I don't really like? Or what if I find things that, I don't really want to know about? So we might resist this idea of self-awareness. So quickly in the chat, see if you can continue with this. I'm loving some of these comments, by the way. Thank you so much. That's the spirit in which I want to engage with you today, just of sharing or of sharing something that can feel quite personal. And sometimes we keep it away from the world of work, but actually it's in all of us, right? How we relate. So Kat has a corporate answer and a private one. I love that. It does depend who's asking, but for today, I'm feeling curious. Thanks, Elizabeth. And that's me. I'm the one asking. So I would like us to maybe write down somewhere between your corporate answer and your private answer. And I think that's already showing us a degree of self-awareness, right? I am being careful before I share this part of me. If we had more time, we have so many workshops that we teach at the School of Life. And one of the ones I really like as well is the one around vulnerability, right? And about how much of myself should I bring to work maybe, and what does it mean? And all of those questions that I think we won't have time for answering today. But yeah, in the chat, some more. Where are you? Where are you all? Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Couple of words in the chat as to your state of mind. How are you feeling right in this moment? Claire is intrigued and tired, curious, right? I'm thinking about Claire, how they support each other. How when I'm tired, what do I do with my intrigue, right? All of the questions for all of us. How about the rest? Come on, put aside what you're doing for a second and be here with me so we learn a little bit more about this ongoing query, right? As to who we are and how we are. What else? So still thinking normally enthusiastic, curious, but tired. So there's a lot of tiredness in the room. I hear it in there. Thank you. Rachel's hungry, right? Great, thank you. And again, how are you able to hold your attention, your presence when you are hungry, when you are tired? And these are all of the things that sometimes we need to learn to verbalize very early on in our careers, to articulate our inner life and then express it to others in a way that doesn't sound like we are complaining or anything like that, but more like we have found a way to tune in to our internal life, and that's going to make us better going forward. All right. So for Julie, work is the only thing keeping me together today. It's giving me focus and meaning. Thank you so much for sharing that too. And this idea that, work can give us meaning, I love that too, as well. It is something else that we need to focus on. Happy, energized, and looking forward to this. Perfect, Gail. Thank you very much. And you're like, why, Raul, come on. We came here for ideas and tools and solutions. Why are you spending so much time asking us how we are? This is all about how you are, right? This is all about how we find that language to communicate with ourselves. Perfect. All right. So from that, let's go into a deeper dive into some self-awareness. I'm going to share some classic School of Life ideas with you. And like I said, hopefully, if you are willing to share some of your inner life with the rest of us, it's going to make the session richer for all of us. So straight away, I would like you to think about someone that you think is super self-aware, right? That can be in the world of work, that can be outside of work, that can be someone that you know, or someone that maybe is in the public eye, and you think they display a lot of self-awareness. And this time you can go into that link, you can go back into the meter, which I'm going to put into the chat again. And this is completely anonymous, all right? The Mentimeter is completely anonymous, so please feel free to share. So think about that person that is super self-aware. How do you know, right? What words would you use to describe them? And the reason why I'm asking you this, and again, is something that I think is very helpful for anyone entering the workplace and already in the workplace, is that a lot of the time, our best teachers are the people around us. So when we see someone that's doing something really well, like for example, they can receive feedback really well, or maybe they're really good at giving feedback, or maybe you see that whenever there's a conflict, they know how to handle it. The risk we fall into is that we think, oh, they have this great personality, or this is that they're just different because they know how to do this well. When the reality of it is that they've really thought about their behavior. They really thought about how they show up in the world, right? So when we're thinking about someone that's very self-aware, chances are that they share some behavioral traits, right? So here's what we have from you. So what do we have? So the words that are bigger, of course, are the ones that more people have chosen, right? So when we're thinking about someone that's super self-aware, we're thinking about someone that's calm, right? Interesting how we make that connection between being self-aware and being calm. And I think for me, the reason why people are more calm, perhaps, is because they're less scared. They're less scared of the contents of their mind. And in doing that, they're also maybe more open to what might be in the internal life of someone else. And that can help you with that sense of calm. What do we have? So they're also open, right? Open to new knowledge as well, perhaps about themselves and others. Humble, honest, thoughtful, present. So these are perhaps the main ones. I hope you can see my screen right. It's doing a little staggery thingy. What else we have? Then the good listeners, the genuine, humble listenings, open, reflective, confident, direct, perfect. They're interested, measured, vulnerable. Some great words there. And it's interesting that these words are, they're not flashy words, right? Especially when it comes to, so if you think about leaders, if you think about people they work with, they're not like big flashy words, but they're actually quite, right? Think about the state of mind that all of these words put you in. And then my second sort of encouragement to you is to think about how many of these words would someone else use to describe you, right? So how do people think of you in terms of your self-awareness and how you show up in the world? So thank you so much for sharing some of this. We'll come back to the mentee as we go through, so we can continue sharing some ideas with each other. But with the time we have, this is what I'd like to talk to you about. First of all, the two sides of self-awareness. I'll tell you what that means in a minute. And then how can we engage with this inner life a little bit more? Can we think about our projection? What does that mean and how often do we do it? And finally, hopefully, you will allow us to go into your mind to think about what is it that you say to yourself most often. Because one thing we've noticed doing this work at the School of Life, I've been with the School of Life for like a decade now, is that one of the biggest benefits in some of the way in which we run our training is that people get to see that they're not so alone, that actually these thoughts that I have are not so weird, that there are other people that might be feeling the same. And actually, it's okay. It's okay to have certain anxieties around getting feedback. It's okay to find it difficult to speak to authority. It's okay to kind of understand that, yes, all of these things are not going to go away. It's just how do we learn to engage with them and still do our work, right? So this is the plan for today. I'm just going to get on with it, and hopefully I won't bamboozle you with too much information. But as we will be breaking things up with some of your input, hopefully we will get our stuff done. So our imperative, first of all, comes from Socrates, and maybe even before Socrates, right? This idea that the task of a human is to know ourselves. And the more we know ourselves, then ideally, the better we can operate in this world. But like I said, knowing ourselves is not that easy. It's actually quite tricky because we have a lot of reasons why we might reject that knowledge. But when we talk about self-awareness at the School of Life, especially in the context of work, we usually talk about two different types of self-awareness, or a lack of. And the first type is that we don't usually recognize how other people see us. Yeah, it might be that some of the people you described just now in the word cloud, they have a better sense of how they, the impact that they have, how they come across. But for a lot of us, we might just, go through this world causing fires, not even realizing that we are doing it. And when other people around us kind of might get upset by our behavior, we think, well, I should just get over it. What's their problem, right? So we're not fully aware of how we come across. So if you would humor me just as a little exercise, and you do not need to put this in the chat, you do not need to put this in the mentee, this is just for you. Like I said, at the end of our time together, I would like you to just become a little bit more interested about what might be going on for yourself. So I'd like you, I'm going to show you a big slide now, and I would like you to pick 6 words that you think best describe you. And as you do this, I'll keep talking a little bit more. Usually when we do workshops like this, we have, we hear a lot more voices. So, but today I'm trusting that you're doing the work. So take a second to think about these 6 words that best describe you. You'll see these are all quite favorable words. So take a second and then either write them down mentally or write them down for yourself. One of the things that I'm not scared of, if you like, both as a psychotherapist and also in any kind of session like this, is silence. I like it. I think it allows us time to really think and engage with our thoughts. So if you see me go quiet, it's not that I've just kind of disappeared into myself, but it's more that I think silence is good for thinking. And maybe we don't have enough in the workplace. All right. So if you hopefully you picked your words, now I encourage you to think about this as well. Would your friends or your partner have picked the same words? And what about your colleagues at work? Would they pick the right words? And how about your parents or your caregivers? Would they have picked anything different? And now, there's no rights or wrongs here, of course, but consider what does it mean for you if there's a lot more, if the words are the same across different aspects of your life, or actually there's quite a lot of difference in terms of how people perceive you. Because this is the thing about self-awareness, right? The more we become self-aware, the more choices we make as to how we're going to interact with different people in our lives. It might be that we think, well, you know, whatever, I am who I am, I don't need to change. Everyone should just get on board with it. And, you know, good luck with that in the world of work. Or we might think about, okay, well, now that I bring some awareness into the way in which people maybe perceive me, I can start to be more active in the kind of impact that I have on the people around us. So just like the people you described in the mentee right before, you can also be thought of maybe as someone that can bend, that can adapt to the different audiences that we're with. And all of those different versions of yourself are going to be just as authentic. All right, so with that thought, let me take you onto the second type of self-awareness, or a lack of, which is that we don't realize what's going on inside of us, right? And this is mostly to do with things like anger, or things like desire, right? Or things like hurt. We have these emotions going on within us, but we've decided that we are too adult, we are too serious to be having these kind of feelings. And therefore, we just pretend that we don't have them. And that can be a problem. Because if I am very envious, for example, that a colleague just got a promotion that I didn't, I say, well, no, of course I'm not envious. I'm actually really happy for them. That envy is going to find a way out, right? It's going to manifest itself somehow. And we might start to sabotage them at meetings. So we might start to talk behind the back, but we're such a great person, but, you know, I'm not too sure that they did the job in the right way, and so on. Because we, by not engaging with the real emotion that's going on inside of us, we then perhaps don't engage with the situation in the best possible way. So, you know, there's plenty of different examples about this, but I encourage you to think about how often do you have an emotion at work and you censor yourself. You think, I should not be having this emotion, right? I'm going to pretend that it's not there. Rather than engage with it and to think, okay, well, I need to put some red flags around this because I know that I am envious about this person, and my behavior may not necessarily help me with dealing with them, right? So this is the second type of self-awareness, and any serious investigation of what's going on with ourselves will treat ourselves with compassion, because they know that, you know, just because I have a bad thought doesn't make me a bad person. It's much more helpful to be able to engage with that bad thought, if you like. All right. So hopefully you're still with me. And remember, if you have any questions, you can put them in the question box. But there you have it, the two different types of when a lack of self-awareness kind of makes itself more manifest in the world of work. Why should we bother with it, right? Why should we bother with building our self-awareness? Because we can see when we are not helping ourselves, we can become more sensitive to how other people see us, right? And I love how we put this here. We can offend less and charm more. And who wouldn't want to do that, right? We can see what our strengths are, and we can be a little bit cautious about what our weaknesses are. And also we can see what is it that we really, really want, right? So we can make better decisions, not just for now, this particularly important for early career talent, but really thinking quite broadly about how do I want to be in this world? How do I want to come? What do I want to be in 10 years' time, right? Why should we bother in terms of the data? The data shows us that 30% more likely to resolve conflict successfully than teams with low self-awareness, teams that are actually highly self-aware, right? That's quite a lot. 36% more likely to make successful decisions, and also more likely to stay with the consequences of not having made a good decision, and not necessarily, you know, feeling terrible about that, but really thinking about, okay, so how do we move forward? And finally, more likely to successfully coordinate with each other, almost half as much, right? So plenty of benefits here to be had in terms of why should we bother with this, especially when people tell you, well, there's other things we could be learning, right? We could be learning technical skills. Why should we bother with learning self-awareness, right? Well, here you have it. There's like some proper data, I suppose, that helps us understand that it is pretty helpful to know ourselves better. So with this, let me sort of give you a couple of ideas as well, a couple of tools that can help us with this. And one of them that helps us engage in introspection is what we call a philosophical meditation at the School of Life. And what do we mean by that? What we mean by this, and we have different versions of this in our YouTube channel and in some of our materials that we give. There is this mistaken assumption that sometimes we overthink, and that overthinking is a bad thing. But at the School of Life, we believe that overthinking is not necessarily a bad thing. What we do is not so much overthink, but think badly, right? That doesn't mean that we should stop thinking altogether when it comes to our internal life. So in our philosophical meditation, what we're saying is, okay, so this kind of thought that you have that feels a little bit prickly, a little bit difficult and uncomfortable, rather than ignore it or suppress it or meditate through it, we download it and we process it, as it were. We go through it systematically until we understand what it is that this feeling or this thought is trying to tell us. And this is true a lot with anxiety, right? When we feel anxiety, which I like to think of anxiety as a fear without an object, right? Is an uncomfortable feeling. We don't really know what to do with it or where it comes from. It manifests in shallow breath, or maybe we just feel slightly, our palms are sweaty and so on. So the School of Life, we say, okay, so we're feeling anxious. So let me think about what's this anxiety trying to tell me? If I feel anxiety is like a messenger, right? What is the message? So think for a second, do this with me. And again, I trust that you're doing this, but you don't need to write this anywhere at all, okay? This is just a second for us to do something together. So run an eye over this list: work, relationships, family, health, sex, money, things that I have to do. Already, I'm sure that for any of those words, you may have noticed a little reaction, right? Maybe a little blip of anxiety. So for one of them, write down for yourself or note in your mind, what anxiety comes to mind? What is that really about, right? What is it that maybe I thought about work and then there's this email that's in my drafts that I need to finish and send. But every time I think about it, I get a little bit anxious and then I don't engage with it, right? That's where procrastination kind of kicks in. So think about this for a minute and then think about an anxiety that comes to mind when you are looking at one of these words. And then what we do is we unpack it, right? We think, okay, how can I help myself with this? What I'm really afraid will happen is, and for example, if I go to the email example, is that this email will lead to a conflict and I will really struggle with that. all right? And then you're kind of naming a little bit what the fear is. What is it really that's underneath the anxiety? And once you figured out what that is, then you reassure it, right? For yourself. So you think, okay, I can probably cope because I've had plenty of conflicts before in my life, and I'm here. I successfully navigated through them. So this is just one quick example of how sometimes engaging with our emotions and our difficult thoughts in this way, in a way that's systematic, with some tools that can help us, that we put around a little frame to contain what can be at times quite difficult, can help us understand that we can deal with this, that we can move forward. So again, for all of us at any stages in our careers, it's quite helpful to develop a little bit more of a, another way to call this would be to have more of a reflective practice, right? That we have a difficult meeting that maybe felt quite tough on us. We felt incompetent. We felt that everyone else seemed to know more than we did, or maybe someone was not particularly nice to us, right? And after that meeting, or maybe we think that, yeah, I could have dealt with that in a better way. And after that meeting, we kind of thought, oh, I don't want to think about it. That was awful, right? And we move away. Great opportunity when we feel a little bit better to think about, okay, well, let me think about this again. Let me engage with this again. What was going on for me? What may have helped or hindered in that situation? How do I move forward from this, right? So we bring this examined life, as it were, to a work life in a consistent way. So over time, we become better at knowing that it's always going to be complex. It's always going to be tricky. Just because we feel anxious doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, right? Again, it's not about getting rid of what makes us human. It's about becoming comfortable with what makes us human. Yeah. All right. So hopefully you're still with me. And let me talk to you then quickly about something else, what we call pinpointing projection. I'm going to show you a painting now. And what I'd like you to do is to go back to the Mentimeter and to just very briefly, and this is a real kind of first thought, best thought, I would like you to tell me, what do you think, in like one sentence, what do you think is happening in this painting? What do you think is the story here? All right. So be very quick, very, very quick to type on the Mentimeter. It's the same link as before, so just you can go and use it. Let's go. This is the painting. Take a little look. Notice what's going on for you inside as you see this painting. And then just on the Mentimeter, share with us, what do you think is going on here? What is this? What's the story? Okay, I'm loving some of your interpretations. Great. I'm going to put them out for you. So couple wondering why the heck they're married. The man's waiting for a drink, the woman sat after dancing. So, what? No, they've just had an argument, or they're arguing. Sad couple for monotonous life. Well, you're on it today. Relaxation, actually. They just had an argument. He's looking at someone below. She is bored. Or he's waiting for something, or calling out. She's waiting for her lover, and she has rebuked him. They have nothing to do with each other. Great. So notice how, what else we have? The lady's looking sad, but the man is oblivious and looking at something happening out the window. He's keen to dance with her, but she's not interested. He said something upsetting about her outfit choice before they left home, and she is now feeling sad. Thank you for the level of detail. A divorce in there, right? Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to go back to my presentation. There we go. But the truth is really that we don't know what's happening, right? The painting is doing what it's doing, but chances are that what we see in the painting is something that's happening for us internally, and then we project it onto the painting, and then that's what we see, right? So this happens a lot in the world of work. You see someone, I don't know, walking around with a serious face, and you think, oh God, they're obviously upset at the email I sent them 2 days ago. right? And that's actually something that's happening inside of us, and we are putting it on someone else. In psychoanalysis, the idea of projection is that difficult feelings that we have in ourselves that we don't want to deal with, we project them onto someone else, and usually we then kind of attack them for them. It's a little bit like someone that's always late and always have a go at other people for being late, but never really at themselves, right? Because they cannot own or bear the idea that they are not maybe that professional. So they project that onto someone else. So in a nutshell, there's an ambiguous situation at work, and we resolve that ambiguity by bringing some of our past experiences, conscious or unconscious, to that present situation. And then we judge it on that rather than what is really happening. So, you know, whatever's going on in your life is going to make it more likely for you to see arguing where someone else might just see resting, for example. So part of becoming more self-aware, part of becoming more in touch with our inner world is to learn to repatriate these projections, to understand that maybe what's happening right now has more to do with me than other people, right? And the idea of projection is particularly helpful when it comes to feedback as well, because a lot of the time the feedback we are giving someone else really has more to do with us than it has to do with them. And I'm just going to leave you with that thought, because you know, it's something that we could spend a lot more time thinking about. But notice through the day, maybe you like, oh no, look, they look so upset. When you say that about a colleague or a friend, just ask yourself, okay, is my upset in that moment more to do with me than them? They actually may be okay with it. All right. So this idea of projection, very fertile work for us to kind of explore, but now we don't have much time, so I'm going to leave it there. But question yourselves often. We cannot stop projecting. It's something that you don't have to believe in psychoanalysis, right? This is something that happens. You see it all the time. But once you start to recognize it, then you can start to do more about it. And then you can start to maybe take back, like I said, some of those projections. All right. So with that, associated with, and also in the topic of self-awareness, let's talk about our inner voices. And we all have these inner voices, right? Voices that get activated, especially when we are asked to maybe do something that's outside of our comfort zone. Very super important when we are at the beginning of our careers as well, right? When we got those core beliefs and we have certain assumptions about ourselves and about our world and how we operate in the world. So when something, you know, we're asked to engage with something that is maybe trickier than we're used to, our voices get activated, and they might be supportive and being like, yes, you've got this, you're amazing, well done, is what you wanted, let's work through this. Or they can be a little bit less so. So they can say something like, you know, you're awful. Can't believe you thought that you would be up for this. You know, these people obviously don't know what a terrible person you are, right? They're not necessarily the kindest voices. So part of the value of doing things like this together is that we get to see that we're not alone. We get to see that we all have these voices, and that we all get to see as well that we are in a way, maybe choosing to listen to the voices that are not the most supportive. So for the next, I think it's like 3 slides, I would like you to give each other the biggest gift, which is to share some of your internal dialogue with everyone else in here, all right? And now, keep it safe for work, but also keep it as close to the reality of how you speak to yourself as possible. Because in doing that, hopefully you realize that all of us at times maybe can find kind of ways to engage with our inner life. So the first thing I like you to do then is to think about a time where you messed up a task at work, right? You can go back to the Mentimeter now, and what is it that you say to yourself when you've messed up a task at work? I would say to myself, you're such an idiot, you've done it again, for example, right? Depends on the kind of day I'm having. So first thought that comes to mind, go ahead and go into the Mentimeter and just write down for us, what do you say to yourself? Really, okay? Don't, what's the word I'm looking for? There we go. Don't sanitize this too much. I don't think that there's a right answer. No, just go with the real kind of first loud voice that you hear inside of your head when you messed up a task at work, right? You messed up a task at work. Okay, 10 more seconds. We'll share this in a minute, but let's go to the second inner voice, right? Okay, so this time I would like you to tell me, what do you say to yourself when a team member gives you a compliment? Someone compliments you either on your character, your personality, or maybe they compliment you on your work that you've done, all right? What do you say to yourself at that point? A team member gives you a compliment. It was such a great report you did. Well done for speaking up in the meeting. Whatever it was. What is your automatic response? And remember, everything you share is a gift to everyone else in this room. And I want to thank you already for being really honest with these shares. Fantastic. I've been doing this a long time, and it's such a gift that so many people kind of have shared access to this internal kind of monologues, so that I don't feel quite so weird or alone with any of this. All right, 5 more seconds, and we'll move on to the last one. All right, and that last one is an interesting one. So here we go. You've assigned a team member an exciting and relatively urgent project, but they haven't replied back. And it's been almost a day now. I was so excited. I sent it off, and now nothing. Tumbleweed. What do you say to yourself at that point? I mean, I say to myself, obviously they must have died because they're not replying to me. But where do you go with this? What do you say to yourself when people don't get back to you? You're really excited. This is good. This is great. Think about how often, and this happens, right? This happens quite a lot of the world of work. Someone may have, a competing agenda, but we may see it as a personal failing. Just put 10 seconds more. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Let's. Are you ready to see the kind of results? Are you ready to get a little bit of an insight into everyone else's mind that's on the call? And in doing that, hopefully a bit of an insight into our minds as well. So you've messed up a task at work. What do we say to ourselves? We say, "You idiot," or we can say, "How can I fix this? I was waiting for this to happen eventually. I was too impulsive. Why did you do that? I should have taken my time. How can I do better?" This just shows that you don't know anything. That was really stupid. Can I fix this quickly? You look so stupid. And now everyone knows that you don't know what you're doing. You're going to get sacked for sure. You didn't take time to really think and plan. So think about how some of these messages are so supportive. Some of them, is it really the best thing we can tell ourselves at that time where we kind of messed up at work? And are we our own worst enemies, right? And again, there's no rights or wrongs. It's just what we become used to here. And because this voice is so familiar, we just listen to it as the true voice. There must be something wrong with us. So thank you for sharing. And whenever we do this in the room, there's also like quite a lot of swearing as well, but I'm glad that you didn't write it down, because I encourage everyone to go for the unfiltered version, right? These inner voices can be quite punishing. All right, let's go for the compliment. Someone gives you a compliment. Well, it wasn't all of my own work. Someone helped me. It took time, but now I accept it. It's a long road to get there, though. Yeah, so it's weird how difficult we find it sometimes to hear someone else tell us that we've done a good job. So especially early career talent as well, we don't understand maybe as managers, but I'm just being nice to you. Why can't you just like accept it? Because maybe we haven't thought about the psychology behind even just being told that you're doing something well. For example, here, why do I deserve this? Or I can feel achievement. I accept it, but I don't feel like I deserve it. That was nice, but they probably didn't mean it and would say it to everyone. That was nice. Overly kind. I'm not sure I'm worthy of the compliment. Great. I'm doing a good job. It has been worth it. So please notice the difference here. Very, very important to understand that we all get to different places in different ways, right? So when it comes to the way in which we receive and we give things like a compliment, which feels so simple and yet is so loaded. So thank you very much. And again, notice the element of choice here. I can choose to do something different with that compliment next time, even though I might really resist it at the beginning. So here we go. The last one. You've assigned a urgent process. No one's getting back to you. Why? Okay, well, I wonder what other pulls there are on their time. Very reasonable. How can I help you? Yeah, they must be busy. It shows how much I'm valued by the other person. Yeah, already putting some of that, how I feel about myself onto someone else. I think about that projection piece, right? What have I done for them not to reply to me? They're obviously busy, or are they okay? They must be busy. Can I follow up in person? They must be busy. I'll give them a couple more days before I nudge. Did I pick the wrong person? Do they not want to be involved? They're probably too busy, or I've overcomplicated the instructions and they're finding it hard to understand because of that. So thank you so much for sharing this. And notice here, there's broadly two responses, right? Either I'm the problem, or maybe they're the problem. Yeah, so it's about me or it's about them. And of course, the truth might be somewhere in the middle. But what this does for us, it helps us understand that every time someone puts themselves first, doesn't mean that we are not worthy, or that we shouldn't be valued, or that there's something wrong with me or the way in which I present my work. So again, by sharing all of these ideas as to what's going on inside of other people, we can, hopefully all of us, become a little bit better at understanding that we all have our internal life, and that we can all really choose different, more helpful ways in which we deal with the realities of working with other people. And all of these inner voices come from our upbringing, right? What kind of messages were we listening to? What kind of messages we introjected, as we say in psychotherapy? And that effectively means taking on sort of rules around how the world works without really chewing them first, without really thinking, okay, is this helpful for me or not? I just assume that this is how we dealt with conflict in my environment growing up. This must be how everyone deals with conflict. There's no really critical thought about that. So once we understand that these inner voices, it does not matter how compelling they are, they're just part of how we grew up. We can start to choose what other voices can I listen to that might be more supportive. And here you already shared the reality that for some of you is much easier to support yourself, to be more confident, more positive about your place in the world. So again, no rights or wrongs here, but just an awareness that we can dial up those supportive voices, and maybe we can turn down the volume on the ones that are not helping us so much. Right. So hopefully you're still with me. Just a couple of homework pieces for you. The first one is to really think about these positive messages that you may also have been given early on in your life, and also reflect on how they've helped you in the difficult moments in your life. And if every time you have a difficult moment, you go to the negative voices, of course, that's not going to be supportive. So engaging with what we know that's already really supportive inside of us is going to help us when the going gets tough, as it were, which in the world of work, it will. So thinking about how we give feedback, thinking about how we receive feedback, always bear in mind that two people are not going to hear the same message in the same way. So it's incumbent on us really as sort of managers, leaders, to take the time to understand that other people, especially young people, they may have had a very different road that's led them where they are. And if I take the time to understand a little bit, how do you like to receive feedback? Excuse me. How do you best learn? We can then make little adjustments that can help some of those compliments to be heard in a way that's supportive, that can help the person think differently about their ability when things are perhaps a little bit difficult. So with all of that, I'm going to finish with a quote by William James that talks about the difficulty of self-awareness, right? He says, the attempt at introspective analysis is like seizing a spinning top to catch its motion, or trying to turn up the gas light quickly enough to see the darkness. The mind, by being observed, already changes. So self-awareness is an ongoing project. We are going to, for as long as we're alive, hopefully continue to learn new ways in which we are, especially in which we are in relationship. So with all of this, I'm going to leave for you while we think about any questions that we have. A little kind of QR code so you can get some of our products. And like I said, I think this is a ongoing project, self-awareness. How do we become more, how can we bring more of ourselves into the world of work? But if you have any questions, thank you so much. Now a couple of you have to run off. Thank you so much for being here and to listening to some of these ideas. But I'd like to know if anyone has sort of any questions around anything we spoke about today.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Raoul. Really interesting session, and I think it got everyone thinking. So like I said, keep sending in those questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. I've got a few here for starters, so I'll just read those out, Raoul, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
So one of them is about this sort of idea of, like, someone mentioned it in the chat about like a corporate persona and a personal persona. And so how do we help young people improve their self-awareness in a corporate setting when they might not be willing to share some of their internal thoughts in exercises like these? I guess that sort of perception of having your mask on in a corporate environment might inhibit some of this progress that you're trying to encourage. So yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. I think what's interesting is that we operate under this idea that somehow we can split ourselves in half, right? And we can leave our kind of our personal self, if you like, outside of the door of the office, and then we come into the office. We are this really good, efficient kind of tool that is devoid of any of the kind of messiness or darkness that makes us human, right? And of course, this is not true. We cannot split ourselves in half. We have to bring all of our messiness. Indeed, we bring it every day into work. All of our doubt, all of the stuff. That's all coming with us. So when we think about developing our self-awareness, is not about having to share all of the contents of your mind to the world around you, but it's about you becoming less scared of the contents of your own mind, so that when there is a difficult day in the office, or some difficult feedback has been shared with you, you know what to do with it, right? So how do you show it will depend on the circumstances. And I think certainly doing this work in a lot of different businesses, different cultures, even within the same organization, will be more open to people talking freely about what they might be going on for themselves than others. But I think regardless of what the environment kind of supports or doesn't in terms of this sharing, the internal process is the same. I see it a little bit like, it's like tidying up. It's like having hygiene, right? You get home, and then you kind of organize your thoughts in some sort of way. So then how you decide to then show up after that, then that's entirely up to you and what that environment in the organization will support. But to try and fit in somewhere without having really thought about what does that mean to me, or do I really want to be here, or this, that's the bit that's difficult, that the not thinking. I don't know, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Brilliant. Okay, while you were talking, I dug out some ISE data as well, which I thought it might be interesting just to share and to get your reflections on in relation to self-awareness specifically. So in our last development survey report in 2025, so 54% of employers reported that graduates did not meet their expectations of self-awareness. For school and college leavers, it was around 43%. So we're looking at around half of all of their intakes. These are people that have been selected. These are the chosen ones. did not meet expectations in self-awareness. And in fact, for graduates, it was the skill that they were most concerned about. And therefore, 90% of employers were focusing on self-awareness in their development programs. So it's just to reiterate, really, that we also find at ISE that it's, a really, really important topic. But it also made me think that perhaps almost once people have started work, it's an important place to focus, but also perhaps it's also sometimes a little bit late. It's an important point to, maybe you're catching up a little, and perhaps there's something that could be done earlier, either by young people themselves, or by by students, or by schools or universities. So I know we have university members as well. So it'd be interesting to get your thoughts if there's anything that can be done sooner to sort of remedy that gap that employers are finding. Obviously, it's an important one to have in development programs, but perhaps also, beforehand, there's work that the young people or universities can do. So, any thoughts on or reflections on that?
Yeah, I think it's certainly changed since when I was at school and university. I think that the language of psychology has grown, and I think people are finding that there's way more tools for them to be able to express themselves. So it's still like it kind of makes me sad that somehow we are not further down the road, just kind of generally the self-awareness kind of piece. But I think it's I don't think I have a solution, Claire, for the problem, but more thinking about if we think about tools, right? What's a great tool to support your self-awareness? Well, a great tool to support your self-awareness for me is a notebook, right? Even in where we are technologically, is still the one place where I can slow down my thoughts and really figure some things out. But the second maybe best tool is other people, is to help us see that people are on our side when it comes to self-awareness. Help us see that we don't have to be ashamed of our inner life and our inner thoughts. And all of us kind of, that are further down in the career path, invite those conversations, demonstrate that actually by showing some self-awareness, you make your life easier rather than harder. And then, use the language and the tools that are already out there and just keep using them more. Self-awareness is not a destination, is not a process. Even if a test tells you you're 100% self-aware, already there's a massive problem there, right? Because we're always going to have blind spots. We're always going to have things that we don't know about. So I think for me, it's about switching on that curiosity and being less ashamed of our humanity, as it were. So inviting all of those conversations can be very helpful. And we see loads of organizations doing this successfully, right? And building cultures where it's okay to continue having kind of conversations around this in their life.
Okay, perfect, brilliant, thank you. We've had another question about sort of an assumption in some of these settings is that everyone's thinking negatively about themselves all of the time, where in fact it might be that the worst kind of lack of awareness is either naivety, so soon to be graduates who just don't have that awareness, or arrogance. So how do we help people to see the development needs within themselves? So I suppose it's any sort of tools to almost diagnose a lack of self-awareness, perhaps that might be the extreme scientific mindset. But how do we encourage people to see what they need to do before they actually start working on it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's I thought about this a lot as well. And you don't know what you don't know, right? And recently I was talking to a young person straight out of university, and really I was quite shocked is not the right word, but I will use it, really quite shocked as the level of assumptions that they were making about things that they really didn't know that much about, right? So I think that the important thing, the way in which we get around defensiveness or around arrogance or around sort of naivety around all of this is just to kind of be curious and to ask the right questions of these people so that they can start to understand that maybe there are some gaps there in what they know or what they don't know, right? Because of course it's the causing fires that I talked about, people that walk around not realizing all the mess that they're creating, and that is the hardest kind of part. I feel that I really feel this question, that people that think negatively about themselves, they seem to be quite close to that negativity. They seem able to spot it quite quickly. And then we can work with that a lot better and quicker, right? When I have these negative voices and so on. But arrogance, a lack of awareness as to how the world actually works, naivety, all of this is kind of is harder to engage with. But the way I get around it is by asking those curious questions and by not just assuming that also I know better. Because if I'm saying that I know everything because I'm more senior and you are young and therefore you're naive, also that's not going to create the best conditions for a dialogue where both people can actually learn something. So, you know, when it comes to technical skills, it's very easy to set, you know, you either know how this works or you don't. When it comes to emotional skills, it's always fraught with danger in a way, but also with possibility. So short answer, curious questions, put in that those the brackets that maybe I put aside what I know so I can start to see a little bit why is it that they're operating in this way, and maybe use my empathy in that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, we've had another one about tools and what tools people can use. So we've had it sort of from two angles, really, but it's basically tools for improving self-awareness for someone who might not have, you know, access to a therapist or access to a coach, but also at all different levels. So we've had someone ask, you know, about their working career development at all levels of sort of the education system. So it's an idea of like what tools are available, but also, you know, are they flexible to work at different levels? Because often, like we said before, you know, even school children might benefit from some of this, and then that'll help them prepare for higher education or employment or whatever. So yeah, so any guidance there would be great, I think.
Yeah, like the first one is the one I already mentioned. So having a notebook, having any kind of repository for your thoughts and your feelings, so you can become what you want to do when it comes to emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and so on. You want to create more space between sort of, you know, the stimulus and the response, as it were. We want to learn to inhabit the gap that allows us to bring in our thinking mind to it and then make better choices. So anything that we can do to help us develop our thinking time in that way is helpful. So other people, they don't have to be coaches or therapists, but they could be peers or you know, even friends. But in the world of work, to normalize going to someone else and talking about what might be going on for you, right? Mentorship for, like, you know, people that have been in the business for longer, to talk about what are some of the things that you might expect as you start off your journey. So again, to kind of normalize all of these conversations can be very helpful. And there's plenty of tools for self-awareness, certainly not just in School of Life, but all across the board. But I think sometimes we can get a little bit distracted by the technological possibilities available, when actually, when it comes to self-awareness, is about, you know, give it time, show up to your feelings, be honest with them, and then see if you can use the people around them. So to me, they're not super exciting tools, but they are the best tools, I think.
Amazing, thank you. Sorry we can't get to all the rest of your questions for today. We're going to sort of wrap it up there. I will send the remaining questions through to Raoul so he can answer those directly. So you can have an answer for those. Perfect. So yeah, really just for me to say thank you, Raoul, for sharing your experience and advice with us today. I'm sure everyone's got lots of food for thought about not only their own levels of self-awareness, but also how they can take that back into their organisations, whether that's a university or an employment setting. Thank you also to everyone else for joining us today. It was great to have you here and being so interactive. If you did enjoy the webinar today, you can sign up for future webinars on the ISE website. And of course, you can check out Raoul's resources that he just shared in that final slide with you. Our next webinar is going to be run by MyPlus. They're going to guide us through using reasonable adjustments in practice. So particularly useful for anyone who wants to learn more about supporting disabled applicants through their hiring process. So that's all from us today. Thanks again to Raoul and the School of Life for joining us, and have a great week, everyone, especially Raoul in Mexico. So fantastic. All right. See you all again soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Bye.